So it's time for another gardening week video, and I'm actually recording this on Wednesday, and the reason is because I've been really busy over the last 2 days. On Sunday actually we had, I think, the biggest ever spring harvest, and that marks the end really of our kind of spring glut. We always have this glut. It only lasts for 5 or 6 weeks. As we come out of winter, everything goes crazy. We have way too much food. We've got giving food to all of our friends and family, and then it kind of just drops down to a moderate level. And the reason it drops down is because we're replanting all of the spring crops with all of the summer, autumn, and winter and next spring's crops. We're sort of crazily harvesting, we're also crazily clearing beds and replanting them all. It's a pretty busy time. It takes about a month, and normally I'm pretty exhausted at the end of it, and I've come to the end of it and I'm feeling fine, so that is a real bonus. We've actually harvested 36% more food this year so far than in any previous year. And generally speaking, we kind of harvest about 20-25% more food each year, get on moving forwards, even though I'm trying to reduce the amount of food that we harvest by growing more sort of low value staples. Anyway, nice problem to have. It was raining and I got stuck into clearing the last bits out of the polytunnel, so I didn't have very much left in there. Basically just parsley, which I picked it all and dehydrated it, and we got one little jar so quite a lot of effort for not a lot of result there. And the last of the celery, and that was actually going to seed. I didn't bother saving any of that. We haven't got any celery now. We are about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks away probably from having celery again, but we've got celery in the freezer, so it's not so bad. What I wanted to get done on Monday was to get all of the tomatoes in, so those are all in. Almost all of them, apart from 3 I think, have got their strings in now, as well as the cucumbers have got their strings in. I just clip the strings to the bottom of the plants and then start winding them round, and then the kind of little hairs on the stems start to cling to the string, and once you've kind of wound them round 3 or 4 times, they're quite solidly attached to their strings. You don't actually need the clips at that point, but I'll leave them on just for good measure. And yeah, then I've got 3 plants that are too small still to have their strings attached, but they will be big enough in a week or so. Pleased to see that the beans, dwarf French beans that we put in last week, those are just starting to break surface. I had a few spare bits and pieces which I sowed. I think there was some golden beetroot and some salad onions. It's madness really to put them in the polytunnel, but that was the only space I had, so I put them in. And I put in some little finger, I think is actually what they're called, little finger carrots, for just kind of snacking in the polytunnel. So I've got carrots in the back garden beds now for snacking, and in the polytunnel for snacking. Last year my carrots didn't do very well. Something just ate the leaves and there was nothing left of them basically, so I'm not quite sure what that was, never saw it, but I'm hoping for better results this year. Away on holiday this week, so I cleared the field beans off her plot and composted those, chopped them up. They compost so much better when you chop them up, and so we've no field beans at all, but we've got plenty of broad beans, so that's no problem. And so I weeded that bed, and then on Wednesday I got a delivery of 20 40-litre bags of well-rotted horse manure, and carried those down to Debbie's plot, and I've got that bed nicely mulched now, so that's all sorted out. I like well-rotted horse manure. The stuff I get it's only £2 a 40-litre bag, which is pretty cheap, and the product is not very fine. It's very lumpy and coarse, but it's a squash bed, so it doesn't really matter. The squash that are going into that bed are actually next to me down here on this little bench that I'm sitting on, and so they're just hardening off now, and so they'll be ready to plant out when Debbie gets back. I also finished clearing the lettuce bed on the allotment, the outdoor lettuce bed. That has been in production since the beginning of March. I planted it out in December. It's been a fantastic bed. We've had so much produce off it. I've left the peas in, and they are just starting to crop now, and those peas are kind of at the back of that bed. And I don't have anything to plant in there now. That is unusual for me. Normally I've got spares of everything. So what I decided to do is just direct seed a whole load of stuff into there. We actually had some friends and their daughter over, and so I got them to do it. And yeah, I mean, I don't mind direct seeding. The success rate is low by comparison with module sowing, but sometimes it's just, it's fun and it's easy, and if you haven't got anything in modules, then you might as well direct seed. You're not losing any time. So I put in all basically, so very closely planted together, chard and lots of different types of kales, some radishes, some sorrel, some red vein sorrels, some rocket, all those sorts of things. So I'll thin those out, hopefully, if they all germinate. And finally, the summer carrots have now outgrown the net that was just stretched over the top of the raised beds that they were in. And so they were starting to push, when it rained anyway, the mesh was pushing down on top of the carrots. So I put in a new, their permanent netted frame, and that is, about, I don't know, 1.5 foot or something like that above the soil level, so that gives them plenty of room to grow. And so hopefully they'll be happy in there. And summer carrots, can't wait. We've got spring carrots at the moment, but not in the kind of volumes that we'll get once those summer direct sown beds are ready, because I'm just picking at the moment from containers that I sowed in November. There's only so many you can do in containers, it just doesn't make sense to do the sort of volumes you can do direct into the soil. I think I've got well over 1,000 carrots in the soil at the moment, and they're all just starting to germinate. It's Wednesday today. I popped down to the allotment on my bike just to open up, but really I'm just working. I'm going to rest, but I'm also just pottering around the garden, getting things neat and tidy. I finished stringing up the peas, and so now that I'm taking the plants away that are in front of them, they'll thicken up quite quickly. They are a little bit leggy at the moment because they've had cabbages and chard and things like that in front of them, which has reduced the light levels and made them grow tall. Also, where they are, there isn't that much light early on in spring, but now as we get into late spring and summer, light levels are much higher. They're getting so much more sun, just because there's less shade from buildings and things. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to having peas in the garden. At the moment, as I say, we're just starting picking peas on the allotment. Given everything a really good weed. Oh, and I did forget to mention that we actually have had rain. Now, in all my time, pretty much, gardening, which is just 6 years now, we've hardly had any rain in spring, and it's been quite a challenge really to put down enough water, because the winter rains have finished a long time ago, back in, well, generally sort of early March it seems to stop raining, and then all the way through sometimes until well into June we don't have any rain. And so that is a kind of peak period when you're trying to get all your new plantings established. A lot of it's been under cover, and so the beds are reasonably well hydrated, but not saturated by any means. So it means a lot of watering. Fortunately, last week I took all the covers off the beds, and so they're all able to take advantage of all of that rain. And we got at least an inch, I would guess. And that, it makes a huge difference, because I think that works out at something like 8 cubic meters of rain that will have fallen on my allotment plot and Debbie's allotment plot. And that represents capacity on those two plots. All of it, all that water storage capacity that's been accumulated all the way through winter, all of it laid down in a couple of days. And there's no way you can lay down that amount of water manually. by hand with a watering can. So yeah, the plants are all really responding, as they always do. Not so much to the fact that it's rainwater, just the volume of water that you get would store practical to lay down by hand. So I am now pretty much finished with gardening for a long time now. Normally at this time of year, Debbie and I would I often, when I'm going out cycling or hiking, I pop in to the allotment first thing in the morning for about 20 minutes, and then in the evening we tend to just go down for maybe an hour until 8 o'clock at night, and just chat to people and do a bit of watering and do a little bit of weeding, and then on Sunday we do the harvest, and that is pretty much it. You know, the rest of the week is full of activities. It's the most relaxing time for me, and because I'm garden all year round, I just really love the fact that summer is so relaxing, and that, you know, I can kind of really take a break from gardening, and then gardening kind of only really properly restarts with any kind of significant volume of work in September. Not that I'm not in the garden in summer. I'm in the garden a lot. I'm in the back garden, and I'm on the allotment, you know, quite a bit. But I'm just not doing any work. I'm just socialising, pottering around, enjoying myself, and yeah, I look forward to it every year. Maybe a little bit different to a lot of other people, but yeah, for me, all the prep of gardening is all done in spring and over winter, and so summer is all about the relaxation and the enjoyment. So I just popped down to the allotment after my bike ride this morning, and it's really, really hot, so I just had to open up the low tunnels that have got the peppers in them, and then I thought I'll just pop these gingers in. So quite a few of them are shooting now, and they're all kind of showing signs that they're ready to shoot. So pop them in here. They're underneath this little trestle table, so they're going to be kind of shaded, very humid, very warm, kind of perfect for ginger. So I'm going to get those covered over, and hopefully we'll have shoots in a couple of weeks' time. So as predicted, a lot less to harvest this week than last week, and just about managed to squeeze everything onto the table. I think next week will be a little bit less than this, because we won't have very much spinach, if any. But yeah, it's pretty good. I think there's 33 different types of things on here, varieties rather. So I'll just quickly talk you through. Not many spring cabbages left now, but that was a really nice one. Loads of calabrese coming, cauliflowers, a couple of little cauliflowers, but the bigger ones are coming soon. Green garlic, first of the new season beetroot. Really pleased with these, good size, quite a lot of these. And I used a new technique for growing these, which I might talk about in another video. And good harvest of broad beans, lots of broad beans coming. Just a second, actually, I think, little tiny harvest of French beans, new potatoes, first pick there of the courgettes. I like to pick them nice and small. I feel like it encourages them to grow faster. So 3 courgettes off 2 plants, but next week hopefully a lot more. Loads of new season carrots, good crop of spinach, but that's the last harvest, I think, off those plants, because we need to get them out and get things replanted. Those are sugar snap peas, and those are mange 2 peas. Good harvest of those, lots more of those coming. And these are just green onions. We have got quite a few stored onions left, but we're saving those for ourselves, and so we just left those in the store. First pick of the rhubarb. I think we're starting to run a bit low on chard now, but still a good harvest there. And yeah, a few more weeks of chard, and then hopefully we'll have new season chard, so hopefully we won't run out. And then we've got all the different kales here and cabbages. Beautiful array there. These are the cucumbers from the conservatory, and so we're picking about this sort of size of tub each week at the moment. Although I do find those plants, they do get a little bit exhausted within another 2 or 3 weeks, which is not hopefully too much of a problem because those are the first of the polytunnel cucumbers. So not very many obviously at this point in time, but still a welcome addition, and I love the taste of these, so I'm really happy that we've got those. These are the last of the allotment radishes, and then we've got some in the back garden which will be ready next week. And then we've got beautiful salad onions there. Those are Leela, gorgeous. And then the salad bases. And there's about 5 or 6 different types of lettuce leaves in those. Quality's not as good as I like it to be, just because these are the new season leaves. So a lot of these plants haven't been harvested before. The leaves are quite old. You know, they've been around since sort of March time, and they've been, you know, bashed around by heavy rains and wind and things like that. So they can be a little bit tougher than the ones I'm used to, which have been coming from the polytunnel and low tunnels, which have been super crisp and, you know, very sort of delicate and mild. So yeah, I'm just spoilt, I suppose. So that is about it, I think. Not a bad harvest, and certainly a nicer harvest, I think, than last week's. You know, last week's was dominated by greens, and now we're seeing a lot more legumes, more potatoes, more carrots, more squash, more flowering brassicas, those sorts of things. Well, that's the trend now. Obviously, we'll start to see more of all of those sorts of things, and yeah, a more balanced table. So my name's Steve. This is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.